Good morning, everybody. It's time for another delicious edition of Texas Oatmeal. And today we've got a product that I designed, kind of, more or less, but CC3D, Ross Duval, I had him print it for me. So let's get right to it. So everyone has the same problem on the early model of the Vanderhall Venice. And it's basically that the gauges shine on the window when you're driving down the road at night. Early models before a certain number of VIN didn't have a dimmer built in. You could add the dimmer, but it was some like ridiculous amount of money that nobody wanted to buy for just a little dimmer. I'm sure some people bought it, obviously. I didn't ever care. I used to run some little Lexan covers over the top of mine that I made. Just real thin Lexan, like 030, real thin stuff that you could flex and bend. I had them taped to the top of the dash, to the top of the gauges. I showed it in a couple other videos. I took those off when I went to this style of dash because this looked real clean and I didn't want these ghetto looking gauge covers on there, visors. So I sat down at the computer as I had been doing some 3D printing stuff for the Frontier. I went ahead and sat down on the computer and tried to think of a way to do a little bit different gauge visor than what is currently on the market. There is one that a company 3D printed and then made a mold for it, and they make a cover. It's all one piece, and it's this big, huge thing that I just don't like the design of. I wanted something that looked different than that. So I did a very poor job of designing this. So this was the first version of a gauge visor that I kind of came up with. I did it, again, I sat in the little 3D program and kind of mapped it out, just kind of guessing. I'm not the best at figuring out the measurements, especially with something that had all these curves and mounting locations and tabs and stuff. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was winging it. And I came up with something that looked very much like this, except the dimensions were off and it didn't fit. This one fits. So this, if I was to take my dash apart and if I was to back those bolts out, you can put this right on there and this covers up your gauges. Pretty cool. So, oh, sorry cat. So this is what I thought up, and I thought this looked a little bit better than what was currently available. I'm sure some of you are going to hate this and not like this design at all, but I think it looks better. So this is what he printed for me. So I figured out that, these dimensions needed to be this depth or whatever to block the glare, at least for me. If you're a different height, some of this will change. I'm real short. I'm only like 5'7", 5'8" on a really good day. And the glare for me is at a different angle, essentially, than somebody that's maybe 6 or 6'1" or whatever. So this will vary a little bit. I've found that if you go at these dimensions, this is, I think, 3.5. So this is 3 inches. This is 2 inches. And for the most part, that should work for most people. I think maybe they could be a little bit longer to be like for sure exactly what you need. But I'm going to throw these on and try it out. So this was the first version. Right, very straightforward. Just everything's flat, no rounded corners or anything like that. And this is what I sent him because this is the best I could do. And again, my dimensions were off. He fixed it. This one works. He also came up with this one that is really more just for looks. This is obviously real narrow compared to this one. So this doesn't do a great job of shielding the glare off of the gauges, but it looks cool. And then there's this one. So this one is essentially like the first set, except he's rounded this off, and I think it looks quite a bit better. This is really kind of what I thought of when I was originally kind of coming up with the design. And this, it's just hard for me to kind of explain it, you know. I don't know, but he kind of understood exactly what I was going for here and rounded this off, and it was just like, boom, that's the one. So this is the one I'm going to install on my Vanderhall after I clean it up a little bit. It is 3D printed, so it's not perfect. There's some little blemishes and stuff to it for where the machine, I don't know, does something weird. But all this is sandable, so I'm going to sand this down a little bit and then probably wrap this with my cool carbon fiber that I've been doing on everything lately. Just going to wrap the top of it, you know, everywhere, just to give it the mostly carbon fiber look. I'm not going to worry about doing the front edges or anything like that. I'm just going to sand all this down so it's pretty smooth, or as smooth as I can get it anyways, and then wrap it. And then install it. And then hope that it blocks all the glare from my gauges at night. I don't drive at night that often, but there have been a couple times where it's been just kind of dusk, and even that is annoying. Without a dimmer, it's like right in your line of sight. It's like a heads-up display, but it's all backwards, so it's terrible. And again, it's right where you're looking through. So this will solve that problem, and it's just 2 bolts to put it in. Well, it's 2 bolts to put it on, but you have to take your dash apart basically to put it on, because they use the nuts on the backside instead of those bolts screwing into the firewall or whatever. Whatever. Anyways, so this only works on a Venice. Any of the Venice models, this should work on. They all use that same little setup for the gauges. So this should be good to go on that. If you have a Carmel, you don't have a place to mount it. You don't have these little tabs to mount to. So this won't work for you. But Ross is working on something for that, I think. He has a Venice, so he's able to go out and measure and make everything work on that. If he had a Carmel sitting around, he'd probably figure something out. But I'm going to get this sanded down and wrapped and installed, and we're going to skip right to that right now. So I figured I probably should give everyone a before shot so you can see how much glare there is up here, you know, from these gauges. So if you cover it with your hand, it goes away. I mean, this is just obviously it's not even super dark right now, right? Like the lights from the garage are still on, but you get the idea. I mean, nice and bright right in your eyes right as you're driving down the road, and then covered. So that's what it looks like before and now. Boom. Okay, so now you can see there's no glare from these gauges. This one you're seeing is actually from this. So we still need to make one for that, but no glare in front of you. Again, it kind of depends. If you were like real tall, then you'd see it, but I mean, from where I sit, actually down in here. Yeah, from where I sit, I mean, that's like dead on. And I'm seeing like a little bit of the outside gauge. I can literally see like mile per hour down here. So it's just barely missing that. But for the most part, I mean, that's obviously way better than it was. You know, I see just a tiny little bit, maybe, but not much. I mean, mostly this one's bothering me now more than anything. But yeah, you know, pretty good. All right, so there it is, all mounted up. You can see my wrap job's not bad. I mean, you can't see the flaws in it, but the GoPro also isn't getting that much detail on there. But you see it fits pretty good, you know, follows the contour pretty well. I mean, definitely well enough that it looks like it's made for this car, which, I mean, it is. So Ross does a great job of, you know, making everything fit really well. And this is just another one of those pieces that fits great. So I gotta throw my screws back in the dash and, you know, get all that back together. But yeah, that's really it. It's a pretty quick install, especially if you've done the mod to where the nuts hold in the backside for your ignition plate, because, you know, that's a pain. But if you've done that mod, then this is pretty quick. If you haven't done that mod, then you have to take everything apart to get to the nuts that hold on the backside of this, so that you can get that off. Again, not the best design, but yeah. Otherwise, pretty quick install, very simple, good product, good fit as usual, and yeah, that's gonna be it for today. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace. I sanded the edges and they were gray, so I hit them with a little black, and they're not perfect. I could probably take some time and sand on them and get them a little bit better, but they're gonna be sitting on there like this and covered on the top. You know, I mean, no one's gonna look at them straight on like that except for me. So I'm gonna go with it.